YouTube? EasyGoingMC back with another Minecraft tutorial. Today, we're taking a look at a quad iron farm design for Minecraft versions 1.15 and up. This is the second farm I'm showing in my new iron farm series, where essentially I'm going to show you guys how to build various iron farms that are various sizes and speeds, as well as methods of killing, as well as spawning the golems. This one I have one that I'm quite proud of. It's a quad design that uses tripwires in order to sense when the golem is spawned, and it actually gets quite decent rates. I found that it's around 1600 an hour, and I measured this using carpet mod counters. So what this means is that this is actually a fairly fast quad design compared to some of the other ones out there. So it's definitely one you should definitely consider building in your world. It's also quite cheap, as you can see. It requires very minimal resources, so this is definitely something you're going to be able to build up in the first couple days of your Minecraft world. So if you're already sold on this farm and want to start building it right now, I've put the time mark to the tutorial on the screen right now, so you can go to that timestamp to learn how to build the farm. Otherwise, I'm actually going to get into a more in-depth explanation of how this farm works. I definitely recommend sticking around for this, as it'll kind of make more sense when you're building the farm, and it'll allow you to modify it to suit your own needs. Before we get into how this farm works, I would like to just point out that I am running the carpet mod on this world. This has no effect on how the farm works, but it does make things such as calculating rates as well as designing farms a lot easier. So if you're interested in this, it was created by Nembon, and I have linked the link to the mod down below in the description. So if you're interested, I strongly recommend checking it out. It's a great mod, and I highly recommend it if you're trying to design similar farms. However, it also proves to be a very useful tool in discovering how this works. So we have 3 icons on this villager as well as a counter. So we can see the moon as well as the work tools. So as I mentioned in the last video, a villager needs to be working and have slept in the past roughly Minecraft day. I think it might be day and a half for sleeping or working, I forget which one. And essentially they have worked and slept recently in order to spawn an iron golem. And the green indicates that they have. Then they also need to be in panic, which is sort of like the infection radiation biohazard symbol that's gray right now because there's no zombie nearby. And this means they need to be in a panic state in order to spawn an iron golem. So a zombie, a husk, or another enemy of the villager needs to be within a certain range, and that varies depending on the mob. Next, they also cannot have spawned a golem in the last 30 seconds, which is indicated by this counter. So as you can see, as soon as a golem spawns over here, this counter will restart at 600 ticks, and it will, once the golem is out of range, it will begin counting down to 0. It is also important to note, and I did not realize this at the time of designing the last farm, and it worked out, so it didn't matter. However, villagers sense iron golems in a 16 by 16 by 16 cube centered around their feet, I believe. So essentially, they can sense an iron golem that would be here, would be over here, even though it's outside of the range that they can technically spawn them. This is why these are spaced out very far, so these villagers can't sense a golem spawned by these, and vice versa. This is also why we have to drop them very far down below in order to get them out of the range so these villagers can start counting their timers down and become able to spawn a golem. And finally, once a golem is able to be spawned, once all these are green and all the conditions have been met, eventually one will spawn. We have 36 spawning spots on each platform, so it can take a few seconds sometimes, but one will spawn pretty quickly. And essentially what would happen is it flows into here, hits this tripwire, which powers these powered rails. And the way these are set up is the zombie is always sitting right here when it comes over, as you can see. And as soon as a golem spawns, it hits the tripwire, these power, and it goes off on its little way. One final feature of this farm, which I will elaborate on in the tutorial, is we do have an on-off switch, and this is very necessary. When you leave this farm for several Minecraft days, if it's not in your spawn chunks, these villagers will not have slept or worked in a huge amount of time, which means that whichever one has the zombie in front of them, because they're currently panicking, they'll never be able to sleep and work, and thus the farm will never restart, unless the zombie is here in this area, because they're not panicking. Once you get over here, you can wait 15-20 minutes, they'll sleep, they'll work, and then you can restart the farm. So that's why we have this on-off switch right here. And it basically functions the same. The zombie would stop here. As soon as you turned it back on, the zombie would continue on its path. So now, let's hop into the tutorial for this farm. It's quite simple, and I guess we'll start with showing you what you need to build it. Let's now get into what you need to build this farm. You can find the item list down in the description, or you can pause the video and look at it right here. A couple notes before we get into the farm. First off, this doesn't have to be glass. You can replace this with full blocks. However, I do think glass looks a lot better. Second off, these don't have to be quartz. You can build this out of any slab and full block variant you want. However, make sure they are able to be spawned on. You can't use like unspawnable blocks for some of these things. Second off, in terms of rails, you don't need to use all powered rails for this design. You can use more normal rails and less powered rails if you're struggling for gold. If that is the case, you might need to use more levers to power the various powered rails. But I'll show you how to build it with the most powered rails possible. But just know you can change that, and I'll be very, very clear on what rails have to be powered rails and what rails need to be normal rails when we get into building the farm. Anyways, let's now get into the tutorial. The first thing you want to do is sort of pick out where the corner of the farm is going to be, because we're going to base it off one corner. So basically you want to start with just 3 fletching tables, just like this. And then what you want to do is you want to go 19 blocks in this direction. 1, 2, 3. And once you've gone 19 blocks away from that, you want to place 3 more fletching tables. Then following that, what you want to do is you want to go back from the middle of this, and you want to go back 24 blocks. So 1, 2, 3. And once you've gone 24 blocks, you want to just place your 3 fletching tables just like this. And then once again, you want to sort of just match this. So you want to head out 19 blocks once again in this direction. And if you did everything right, it should match up. And just to be safe, as this is very critical, I do recommend checking that this is in fact 24 blocks. 24. So you should be left with something like this. So you have a 2x2 grid of these three fletching tables, and essentially it's 19 apart in this direction, and then it's 24 apart in this direction, and you have 4 of these. So these are actually the beginnings of your villager pods. So to build up the rest of the villager pod, what you're going to do is you're actually going to place 3 trapdoors in front of this, away from like the interior of the farm. And then what you want to do is you want to place some temporary blocks, just like this, and then place 3 beds, like so, with the pillows in the interior of the farm facing the fletching table. So the pillows should be facing this way. And then to keep your villagers inside, you just want to place 2 blocks up like this, 3 blocks on top, 2 more blocks like so, and that is your villager pod done. So you want to do the same on all the other 3 villager pods, and you also can get rid of all of these blocks that you use to measure. These are temporary blocks, and we're just used to count. So put your villager pods in, break these temporary blocks, and we'll continue the farm after that. Please ignore the rest of the farm in the background, but after you put in the villager pods, make sure you go to every single one and just build 3 blocks above it, just like so. Place a block right there. You can break these down. You just want to place a block on either side. So this is where the fletching tables are. Then what you want to do is you want to go 3 blocks back in the direction of the beds and just fill that in. You also want to go 1 block on each side as well. So you should have a platform just like this. And then you just want to go 1 block in front, which would cover the trap doors. This is to prevent lightning. Make sure these are half slabs so the golems and or mobs can't spawn up here. But yeah, this is to prevent from lightning strikes, because lightning turns villagers into witches. Once again, just ignore the rest of the farm. We'll explain that in just a sec. Once you're done, it should look something like this. Essentially, the beds are facing in and the trapdoors are facing out. That's the critical part of this farm that you need to make sure you get correct, I guess. Anyways, let's now put in the spawning pads. So to do this, what you first want to do is just place down 2 blocks right here, break that one, and then place slabs underneath right here. So you should just have 3 blocks underneath of the slabs, right underneath the fletching tables like so. Then you want to go out 3 blocks on every side, or on both sides, and just carry out that same pattern, lining it up just like so. Next, you want to put in a 9x4 spawning pad. So you go out 4 blocks from the glass, and then you go over to the edge of this, which is the 9th block, and then you just fill this in. This is the spawning pad on which the golems are going to be able to spawn. So once you fill this in, it should look like this. The next step is to put your fences and fence gates in. So the first thing you want to do is just put 4 fence gates on either side, like this. You might have to place a couple temporary blocks and just place it like so. the next thing you want to do is place your 9 fence gates right here, right in front of where the water is going to be coming from. And you want to make sure these are all open. And then what you can do is just place your water in, and it should flow, not off, not over, and then flow right to these fence gates where the golems are going to be able to drop off. So now you're going to repeat the same process 3 more times on every single other villager pod. Alright, once you put in the spawning pads, you should have 4 of them, just like this exact replica of the first one we put in. The next step is to put in our rail system, and specifically put in the blocks that are going to make it up. So the first thing you want to do is in front of every single one of your spawning pads, you want to go 2 blocks out from the middle, and you want to place 2 blocks like this on the right side of these 3. And then on either side of that, what you want to do is you want to go up 1 full block. And these specifically have to be full blocks. So you want to do a similar thing on every single side, where with this pattern of the right is on the same level as the fletching table, and then 1 up like so. Once you've put all 4 in, it should be something like this, where you have all 4 of your little U's, I guess you could call them. So the next thing you want to do is you want to connect it all with top half slabs, just like this. And essentially on the corners, what you want to do is just narrowly miss the glass. So you want to come as close as you can. And this is essentially reducing the amount of rails you need to place, as well as reducing the amount of time it takes the zombie to travel. So you just want to go around the whole thing, connecting them up when they're in between, and then at the corners, just narrowly missing, essentially going right by the glass. It should be touching. You don't have to worry about your villagers getting hurt or anything like that. And you just want to make a giant square just like this. So the next step of this is to put your rail systems in, and this is where you do have some decisions. However, this is what you must do in terms of powered rails and rails. So on each of these little U's, what you have to do is you have to place 4 powered rails like this, and 1 normal rail on each side. This pattern is required. You have to do this, otherwise the farm won't work and the redstone will break. So you have to have this type of pattern on every single one. Beyond that, what you can also do is sort of space out powered rails on these sections. However, I am choosing to just place the entirety of that like so. On corners, you might have your normal rail is right here, and then you have the 4 rails. That will happen twice in the farm, just to let you know. But yeah, this part's up to you. Once you're done, you also want to power all the powered rails except the ones right here. You want to leave these unpowered because this is what's going to cause the zombie to stop. And once the golem spawns, that's what gets powered by the tripwire. So leave these unpowered on each of the 4 sections, but you can power the rest. After you've put your rails in, you're actually going to come to one of the sides that's slightly longer in between the water pads like this. And what you're going to want to do is just clear out 4 blocks. You're going to put actually a similar U as you did in front of the villager pods. This is actually the on-off switch. So you just place this in, and then you have the same pattern. So normal rail, 4 unpowered rails just like this. And then you can power any one of these blocks with a lever or other input source. And this is your on-off switch. So unpowered is off, powered is on. So you could link this up down below the farm, or you could come up here manually and do this every so often. But this is what's going to essentially allow the farm to be able to reset once it's going. So you need to make sure when you build this farm, when you're running it, that after it's done, after you're done using it, you turn it off so the zombie stops here. And then before you turn it back on again, you need to make sure the villagers work and sleep. And this was farther elaborated in the technical details of the farm in case you missed that and didn't watch that part. So if you were confused, go back and watch that. But just make sure you leave the farm off for 20 minutes prior to use when you're loading the area, and make sure you turn the farm off when you leave. Otherwise, you're going to have to come up here and manually move the zombie. If you just turn it off, it'll get stuck here. The villagers will be able to sleep and work with ease, and you won't have to do anything of that. And you just turn it on after like a whole day cycle, because then at that point you know they work and slept, and you can turn the farm on safely. So the next step of this is to actually put in a protection to prevent the zombie from burning unless it has a helmet on. So if your zombie has a helmet on, you don't have to do this step, but I recommend doing it just in case. So essentially what you want to do, as I just did, place 1 block and then place a slab and then do this. Make sure they're half slabs, and then just go around the entirety of the rails just making a giant ring of slabs, just like that. So once you've done that step where you put the ring of half slabs around, I recommend putting your villagers in place. So you want 3 per pod. I recommend using the nether to get them extremely close, and then using boats or minecarts to get them in. This is always the trickiest part. You just gotta be patient and make sure you don't allow any way for the villagers to be escaped. Only give them one route, which is into where they're trying to hide. Don't give them options to escape. That's what makes it difficult. So the next thing you want to do is put in your tripwire. So what you're going to do is essentially come to one of the farms, one of the spawning pads, and you just want to place 3 temporary blocks off of that fence post. And you want to place your tripwire hook right here in line with the fence post on that same block. And then you want to place a half slab on top of this full block. That's to prevent a golem from spawning there, actually. Then you want to place your 9 string essentially just on top of every single fence post. And then you want to just place another temporary block right here and place another tripwire hook in line with that fence post. Then what you want to do is just place slabs like so, top slabs all the way to when it's in line with the rails. Then you want to build up by 1 block. You can still use top half slabs, and you want to line it all the way up to where this powered rail is. Next, you want to put a repeater on full ticks going into the powered rails like so, and then just place your redstone dust running from this tripwire hook. So now when something goes in here, as you can see, it lights up, and that would actually send the zombie going. So now the next step is, of course, to put that in on all 3 other sides. So guys, just to make it abundantly clear, you do want half slabs on both of these blocks. I didn't place one here. You definitely want half slab on this block as well as that block, just to keep that in mind so golems don't spawn there. The next step of this is to put a zombie in a minecart. You want to make sure this guy doesn't despawn, and there are 2 ways to do that. First, you can just name tag it, and that's the simplest. Alternatively, you could find one that can pick up items. This means you don't have to use a name tag, which is a valuable item. And then you can throw it an item and it won't despawn. This is advantageous as you could throw it a helmet, and that means it won't burn in sidelight, meaning you can actually get rid of these slabs. At this point, the farm is now complete. If you started letting this guy go around in circles, we would see that golems are spawning. However, I'd recommend putting in a collection system first for the golems, just so you don't have golems just spilling all over the place in your world. So I definitely recommend doing that. So at this point, you do have some options. You can put your own killing system in. However, I'm going to show you how to build mine. So the first thing you want to do to build it is you want to come back 1 block to this block right here. And this is actually the corner down there. So you want to come to this block and just drop it by 20 blocks down below. And this is that corner. And then you want to go over 6 more blocks into the farm for a total of 7 blocks like this with glass. And then you should be somewhere in the middle of the farm. And then you sort of just want to run all the way down to the point where this corner is that same block just on the opposite side, where it's 2 blocks in, 1 block out from the fence gates. That's what I recommend. See, as you can see, like 1 block out from the fence gate. There we go. So that's where you want to position it. You want to go 5 blocks in, and then you want to do the same on the other side. So once you had that ring of glass going around, you want to drop it down by 1 more block and just place a bunch of half slabs and fill in this whole area. If you want exact measurements for these blocks, I have put the world download down in the description if that makes it easier. But this is roughly what you're going to do. Just do that position down, make these 2 rectangular boxes on either side with them going into the farm. So the golems are falling off like into most of the pad rather than having all the pad back here. So what you want to do now is you want to add up some water streams. So on each of them, what you want to do is just place some water like so in the 5 pressure plates. Then placing the water on slabs is a little trickier. So if you place it just in a slab, it would waterlog it and it wouldn't work. So you want to just place water right here, kind of, filling it in. You need to place it on the side of blocks so you can water, so it doesn't get waterlogged. And you want to actually cut this off at a certain point, but we'll get to that in a sec. So then you want to do the same thing on the other side. Just place this, place your trapdoors, and then place in your water. And then as you can see, it should come to this formation right here. So then you have this sort of 3 block center right here, and you want to go actually 1 more block and then right here. So this water stream is only 4 long, and that's on both sides. Oops, one more block. So essentially you have this 5 by 5 area in the middle, and you're going to do this on both sides. So you're actually then going to connect it up. So you're going to just do a three block wide path towards the center of the farm, and you want to place a water source here and here. So we'll actually cut off right there so you can break these slabs. So this is what you want to do on both sides. So guys, you're on the home straight. Just one more step, and that's actually to put in this killing chamber in the center, and I'll show you how that's built. I decided it'd just be easier to show you than build it in front of you. So one last thing too, make sure you build this glass perimeter up by one more block. That's to prevent golems from jumping up here and not being pushed in. So to build this killing chamber, you essentially have your water flowing. What you want to do is just drop that down by 2 blocks, and then place a bunch of signs, 12 signs in fact, on every single one of these hoppers that are they're the level of 2 blocks below the slab like this, and there's 12 hoppers all feeding into this chest. And essentially, once you put all those signs, you just float lava on there. That's at the same level as these half slabs. And then the golems just flow in, and they sink down to the lava and then die. This farm is lossless. They can't swim in lava, so all their items are just instantly put on the ground and picked up by the hoppers. And yeah, this means the farm's done. Congratulations, you built yourself a pretty nice starter quad farm that produces around 1,600 an hour, which, depending on the situation, that might not be starter for you. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like down below. That really helps out the channel. What also helps out the channel too is, of course, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and just overall commenting, leaving support. That's definitely the #1 way to support the channel. So thank you guys in advance for doing that. If you didn't like the video, make sure to let me know any improvements that you would make on the farm. However, I think this is a pretty decent farm, and I hope you guys also like it as well. If you need any help while building it, or you just want to join me for some general chit chat, please join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also in the description, you will find some important information such as world downloads and things like that in case you're interested in taking a farther look at this farm. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have an easygoing day, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.